Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Newington Town Council regular meeting of June 23rd to order at 7:01. If you would, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America.
I apologize, is the flag not on the screen yet? There it is. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which
which it stands,
one nation, under
God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda is roll call. If you would, Susan, please.
Yes. Counselor Anist?
Here.
Counselor Braverman?
Here.
Counselor Budraco?
Here.
Counselor Camillo? Counselor Donahue?
Here.
Counselor Mankey?
Here.
Counselor Minor?
Here.
Counselor Nagel?
Here.
Mayor Del Buono?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know Councilor Camillo was busy just before the meeting. Hopefully he'll be hopping right on with us momentarily. The next item is approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Anist has her hand up. Councilor Anist?
You're on mute.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Mankey. Is there any discussion on this item?
I would just, we have one addition. I'd like to table item 4.
Second.
Okay, and any discussion on that?
No, this is a scheduling issue. We needed to schedule the recipients to be present or be on the Zoom meeting to provide their recognition.
Okay. So I would ask for a roll call vote on the approval of the agenda as amended. Susan, are you
Okay.
there? Can you do a roll call for us?
Here, yes.
Counselor Braverman?
Yes.
Counselor Budraco?
Yes.
Counselor Camillo? Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Mankey?
Yes.
Counselor Minor?
Yes.
Counselor Nagel?
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono?
Yes.
Councilor Mankey, Councilor Miller is on, Councilor Camillo is online now, sorry.
Great, thank you. So that motion passed 8-0. Councilor Camillo was not present. He is now present moving forward. Thank you. All right, so the next item is, we're going to skip right over awards and proclamations. We removed that. So we are on to public participation. Any member of the public may let us know that they'd like to be recognized.
We do have one on with the hand raised.
Okay, and so for those of you that are listening and may not have access to the screen, we do have participation. You can do so by raising your hand in the participants window at the bottom, or if you're on your phone, you can do *9 to activate the raise your hand function. I will go ahead with our first caller. The number ends in 070. Maybe Miss Lyons?
That would be me, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. There's been a lot of chatter on Facebook today regarding the article in the Newington Herald about the $12 million pool. I was not able to read the article, but I have been following the renovations between Churchill Park, Mill Pond Park, and I think maybe if perhaps when you vote on the forming of the committee tonight, maybe you might want to touch a little bit upon the scope of the project and how it's going to be funded, just for the public's information. I'm just wondering if it also could be on the website. While I realize that this is just a committee to formulate what's going to be done, what can be done, I think once the word gets into the newspaper, the media gets a hold of it, it just turns into a whole big hullabaloo before even anything's even been decided. I personally would like to know a timeline as to whether or not this Mill Pond Park project will be on a referendum in the fall, or if that's what the plans are. It may have been stated before, but I don't remember. And also with Anna Reynolds, if they'd both be going on to a referendum together. I noticed that the project is, phase one is $8 million, and phase two is $4 million. I'm hoping that both will be put to referendum, and I, as a person who attends the CIP meetings on a regular basis, I hope I don't see any expenditures out of the CIP for the Mill Pond Park improvements. I realize that, I think that someone had mentioned, or I had heard that it might be partially funded by a DEEP grant, but as one man once stated during the municipal parking lot project renovation, when he was told, well, don't worry because some of it's coming from state grants, he said, it makes no difference where it's coming from. If it's municipal, it's coming out of my left pocket. If it's state, it's coming out of my right pocket. So that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. The next raised hand that I see is caller Barbara.
Barbara is muted.
I'm sorry. Barbara, are you there? She was unmuted and now.
She's there.
Barbara, are you there? Hi, Ms. Squillico, are you there?
She took her hand down.
Okay, her hand is not. Oh,
Back
it's
up.
back up. Hi, Barbara, are you there? So I've got her unmuted and I have her able to talk. I'm not sure what's happening. James, do you have any suggestions?
Her hand's down.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she's having a problem with it. I can't see an issue on this side. Everything looks good. She's not disabled with talking. So if she needs to, she can give me a call in my office and I can get her onto the line for us.
Okay. So Barbara, if you're listening, you can call, I think you have James' number. You can give him a call if you'd like to get on. We have you unmuted. You should be able to participate right now.
Her hand is down.
Okay. We're going to move on.
Yeah, hold on. I'll put you on. I've got her on my phone now.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. Go ahead, Barbara.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Okay. Barbara, 275 Field Street.
And we've lost her.
You know what? We have another member of the public with their hand raised. I'm going to move on to that person. And if
Okay.
Barbara's able to reconnect, we can go ahead with her next. Okay.
Yep.
So we have Jennifer McCurdy. If you'd like to go ahead, Miss McCurdy.
Thank you. 60 Wells Drive, Newington. I just wanted to reach out in terms of the recommendation to move forward with the referendum for the Anna Reynolds School. I would hope that the town council would take that request seriously. Putting money into the education of our students is paramount in our town. I also was unclear if the referendum for the Mill Pond was going to be a separate referendum or combined, but I would recommend that not be a combined referendum. I think that in improving our town facilities and recs and parks, I typically normally support, but in the era of a pandemic, I'm not sure $12 million on Mill Pond is the best use of money, especially when we have schools that are needing to be looked at. So I hope the town council would consider that and consider the economic status of the tax revenue and with small businesses struggling right now and prioritizing the schools over Mill Pond.
Okay. Thank you, Miss McCurdy. All right. I'm looking at our participants window to see if there are any other raised hands. Ms. Squillicoat, are you there? Give it one more try. All right, I apologize. I'm not sure what's happening, but it doesn't appear to be on our end technologically. So we're going to move on to the next item. There's no one else with their hand raised in the participants window. So we will move on to the next item, which is email correspondence. Mr. Krapinski, do you have the name of the person that sent a letter in, or should I access that?
I do have that. Miss Idalina E. Coltrera of 38 Patriot Lane sent a letter in, and that will be attached to the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to reiterate for the members of the public, the Newington Town Council has rules of procedure. They were amended recently. I want to say it was back in January. And there is a little bit of a difference in terms of public participation and writing letters in. So letters used to be read into the record. It became somewhat cumbersome, and we do allow several methods for people to call in and appear. So the rules of procedure were amended so that any letters sent in 24 hours prior to the meeting to ensure that we would access them and everyone would have equal access. Those letters will be attached to the minutes of the meeting so that everyone in the public can see and the counselors would have an opportunity to review them. So the 24-hour rule is one that we do follow now, just to make sure too often things were not able to be accessed or not everybody had the same information. So I just wanted to make sure that the public is aware of that change. And as I said, that was several months ago now. So we will move on now to remarks by counselors on public participation. Anyone? I don't see any raised hands. So we will move on to the next item, which is consideration of old business. The first item is health update regarding COVID-19. Mr. Chapman, if you would.
Yes, just a short update. First thing right off the bat is that we had sent out a memo to the council last Friday advising them that we were working to prepare Churchill Pool in case the COVID-19 predictions from the health department failed to materialize. That work that we've been doing down there has raised all kinds of eyebrows and questions by the public. So we sent out a press release today, which you have copy of as of today, advising the public that we're still, somewhat cautious about opening the pool, depending on what the COVID-19 situation is at the end of this month. So yes, we are working on Churchill Pool, and if the COVID-19 situation does not materialize, then there's a good likelihood we would be opening the pool at Churchill. However, just watching the news tonight, I will say that based upon what's going on in the southern part of the country, they were opened up a couple of weeks earlier than us, and they're finding all kinds of problems. So I'm not optimistic that the pool's going to open, though it will be prepared to be open, but I don't think it's going to open. As far as the rest of it goes, the town hall, well, all the town buildings remain on a closed status. However, all services are being provided that we can provide through telephone or email or face-to-face. If someone comes to the town hall, for example, they just call up the number of the department they're looking for. They're all listed on signs outside, and we will have a person come and meet with them and go over whatever their needs are. So we're continuing to work around this COVID-19. And as you can see, even with our meetings, it's very frustrating for all of us to have to deal with it the way we're dealing with it. And information is poor, to say the best. So hopefully this thing goes away soon. Otherwise, we're gonna have a very frustrating summer and fall.
Councilor Mankey, you have a question?
Yeah, dude, as far as the pool's opening, whose decision will that be? Will it be the health district, your decision, or Parks and Rec decision?
Well, it'll be a combination of all three. We have a high respect and regard for the health district. They're members of the 4 towns, and we're going to try to adhere to their recommendations. I did have a conversation with Mr. Brown And he understands the dilemma. All the other towns are or will be opening their pools, even though it's still advised from the health district. And that's part of what we're faced with. All the other towns are doing
Right.
it. And it's putting a lot of pressure on Newington, and it's really not fair. We have employees that are working and will be working with individuals that go to these pools, and the distancing issues and the way in which this pool's going to be laid out is going to be very difficult to manage. But since the other 3 towns failed to follow the advice of the health district, we're going to prepare, but we're still going to wait for a clearance by the health district, and then Parks and Rec and I will make the final decision.
Thank you.
Mr. Chapman, I noticed too, we've gotten several email correspondence regarding certain Parks and Rec programs or small summer camps that are going to be open. So while I know we're not opening our typical large group summer camps, there are a few individual small ones that are being allowed to open. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there are some small ones. The large ones that have 100 or more camps, they're not open. That we feel is very, very dangerous, and we're not going to participate in that. It's just too risky. But there are activities, and they're listed on the Parks and Rec website. I would advise any member of the public to go on that website, and if you have any questions, just give a call to Parks and Rec, and they'll give you a further explanation.
Okay. Councilor Bedrejko?
Yeah, back to the potential opening of the pool. I believe last week or at some point, Mr. Chapman, you actually provided us with some of the restrictions and regulations that would have to be in place. So I think it's just important for the public to know that it will be, if we even open, it will be a very, very different experience for the swimmers, for the participants. It's not going to be, staying 6 feet apart in the water. It's just going to be very, very different. It's not going to be a free-for-all for everybody. And just that caveat that it won't be the fun time summer, that experience that most families would appreciate.
I totally agree with you. It's you look at the parameters that we're going to be following. It's almost not worth coming to the pool. But if somebody is that determined, then we're going to try to provide the opportunity. But I would strongly encourage people to find alternatives. It's just not a good situation, and why risk health for a swim? It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
Any other council question or comment? Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is Town Hall project update. That's you as well, Mr. Chapman.
Okay, we're coming to the end of the road here. Within the next month or so, we should be moving into the new facility. All the furniture has been ordered. The building itself is becoming more and more complete in many respects. The second floor final painting and interior doors and carpet that are all being installed. Porcelain tile and vinyl tile in the corridors is complete. On the first floor, wall construction and at the vault is complete. Installation of ceiling tiles, final painting is ongoing. And on the third floor, the final painting of the third coat is complete. The doors are being installed. The elevator subcontractor, which was offline for a number of days, is back working. That elevator should be working in full capacity upon the opening date. Gym finishes are substantially complete. The wood flooring is ongoing, and the installation of the Board of Education furniture is coming up very shortly, followed by the town furniture. And the site work, if you've been out there, you'll see that the final paving is, I believe it is now done. Final sidewalks are being installed, topsoil's installed, plantings are being planted. So it's starting to shape up real well. And we're still within budget. So it's getting close.
I know everyone at Town Hall is starting to pack up their belongings and office things to get ready for the move. I came in tonight and saw a few boxes in my office to start packing as well. So I'm glad
Yeah,
to see that we're close enough for that.
We're working with the movers right now. We're still trying to figure out what we're going to do with the furniture that we're not going to be moving. I'm talking with an auctioneer tomorrow, actually, to see if that can be worked out. From what we're told, the cost of moving the furniture is not, it's more than the sale price of the furniture. So it's not a good situation. We'd like to be able to use the furniture we've offered. And the Newington Theater has taken advantage of the auditorium chairs that are in good shape. So that's something they can use in their new facility. And so we're trying to get rid of as much material as we can to those that need it the most.
That's great. Any questions by counselors? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. The next item on our agenda is Mill Pond Park Pool Public Building Committee amendments. If I could just start on this one. This was requested actually by myself at our agenda setting meeting. And my intent in requesting the development of a scope was more for this council to have some input on, I don't want to use the, I will use the word, reining in the project a bit. So making sure that the project fits fiscally with where this council would be able to support it moving forward. And so my concern was that if we didn't set either a budget or some type of scope for the project, that the building committee would be doing a lot of work that maybe for naught if it was not within a scope that the council would be able to support in the end. So that was my purpose for requesting the item. That being said, what came to us in our packets is almost the opposite of that in my mind. So there's a lot of language in there that would tie us into allowing certain things to be included in the project when I'm not sure financially whether all of those things would fit. So my recommendation before I open it up to conversation and discussion would be to withdraw the motion that's in our packet and for the agenda setting committee to consider if there's other language we want to consider, or if we let the previous motion stand as was passed at our last meeting, which formed the committee. So that being said, I'll open it up to discussion. Councilor Bedrejko has her hand up.
Yes, I just want to say when I saw this in the package, I was disturbed and dismayed a bit, particularly since at the 512 meeting, we were quoted by the presenters that it would be an $8 million project. And here we are 2 weeks later, the building committee hasn't even been named for the most part or met yet. And it's up to 12 million. So, I mean, who's zooming who here? So that's what's one of my first concerns. And the second is in terms of a proposal, the items in this are so specific and so prescriptive. It seems to me that half the work, or 75% of the building committee is already done with the scope that's outlined here. So I agree with you, Mayor Del Buono, that we need to be concerned about cost, as some of the individuals who spoke in public participation. 12 million to me is not doable at this time. I have no clue whether 8 million is appropriate, is too low, is too high, or whatever, but I do believe this proposal as it stands, I'm certainly not going to approve a $12 million project. I'm certainly not going to approve something from the town council that's so prescriptive and say it will have this, it will have this, it will have this. It seems to me that the building committee should be given a charge, a general financial, let's say, charge with some general conditions, but then they should come within the budget constraints that the town of Newington and our taxpayers have to live within, and then it's up to them to figure out what would be appropriate for our needs and our residents, as well as our economic position to come up with for the pool. So yeah, I was really dismayed when I saw this.
Thank you, Counselor Bedrejko. Counselor Anist?
Thank you. I was too, I was kind of taken back when I saw this. Keith, I don't know who did this. Did Mr. DeMayo have any input when you wrote this? Or who wrote this?
Well, James did the final typing, but yes, Mr. DeMayo had talked to James about this. I will take full responsibility because, you know, it's my package that I sent to you, so therefore it's my responsibility. There was just a total misunderstanding of what was expected, and I agree that this is not what you are looking for. Then you shouldn't take an action on it, and you should table it or withdraw it, and we'll start over again.
Okay, because I just have a couple questions, because I do know on May 12th, when he did the presentation, that the 8 million included a lot more than the 5 items that are listed here. Number one, this doesn't even call for the demolition of the existing structures, an amphitheater. It doesn't even include the $1 million splash pad. So if you look at people out there are looking at the 5 items, and they're going, wow, that's 8 million. Well, that's not the whole scope of the project. And I agree with Gail. I think it should be up to the building committee to decide what is going to be included in whatever budget the council sets for them, and not have it this tight. And I think when people saw the 4 million, that's something totally different that's not even included in these 5 bullets. So I think people are looking at it going, oh my God, it's 12 million. That's not what this building committee was for. I believe, and my understanding was this building committee was formed for phase 1 for up to the 8 million for the new pools, the bathhouse, and you know, the refurbishing of some of the adult fields, the baseball fields. So I agree. I would either like to revert back to the existing one, or maybe put a caveat or amend it so just this resolution includes a cap of a dollar amount. I don't know, but I agree. I think this is not what we expected and what we kind of discussed.
You can do it over.
Counselor Menke? Oh, you're on mute, Ms. Counselor Menke.
There I'm back. I agree with the first 2 speakers. This is not what I anticipated. I think we should just do this over. I think it's important we give the committee, we give all our building committees, not just this particular building committee, but all our committees should have some scope of what we expect them to do, kind of what we expect to spend to do it, and what we can get. But I think the scope should also include, again, looking at we have 2 pools, looking at both of our pools. We weren't here a number of years ago. We were told that Churchill Park was unusable, and if we didn't spend money to fix that park, that pool was going to be no good. So I don't want to spend money on one pool and come back a couple more years and find we need money on another pool. And I don't want to just spend money that we maybe won't have next year or when we go to do this on something maybe we don't necessarily need. So I think we should look at all of our pools at the same time, and certainly give this committee for the Mill Pond pool a more specific charge.
Okay.
And have that ready for you next meeting.
Counselor Annis, did I forget to take your hand down, or did you put it up again?
Oh, I had more questions, but that's okay.
Go ahead.
Knowing that now July 12th, hypothetically, if this would be on the ballot for November, so the building committee would have to do the presentation, the bond council would have to be talked to, we would have to have a public hearing by what date in August? I'm just curious.
I don't have an answer for you. I would ask that based upon the speed in which we wanted to get this onto the agenda and the conditions that it was requested, I would ask that the council allow us to go back, regroup, and present a new resolution that will address all those issues. I don't have the answers to the questions. I wasn't here when this whole thing started, and so I take responsibility, but I don't have the answers.
No, isn't it 90 days out from the referendum date, or any referendum date?
I will find that out for you.
Thank you.
Counselor Donahue?
No, I'm not muted. I mean, we also have to have something in there that this is totally based on getting some state money in return, right? This is not a totally town-funded project because we were told this was based on getting money from the state. So I don't know if we got to put that in as a caveat in the new charge as well, because, you know, that's how it was proposed to us 2 weeks ago.
This was supposed to be a shovel-ready project potential if federal money or state money were afforded to the towns, and we wanted to be in a position to have a shovel-ready project ready to go.
I just want to make sure that it's in there, because if you've read this, it doesn't look like there's any, you know, reliability on the state. It looks like we're just going to do this for $12 million. I understand where you're coming from.
Thank you, Counselor Donahue. Counselor Nagel?
I agree with what previous counselors have said, that this was something of a surprise when I saw it in our packet. And I do think it needs to go back and be redone and have a more realistic look in terms of what we can approve and indeed what the town might approve. I do believe it's 90 days, and it wasn't the intent of this council, I believe, to have this go on a referendum, and in no way was it something approving of the project. And the caveat always was a shovel-ready money, and perhaps we should include in whatever we go forward that indeed this project doesn't go unless it passes a referendum and unless there are some monies coming from the state. I would think the first and most important thing would be to have people on this project building committee and approved by this board before we go ahead and at least give them the credit of, or the opportunity to look at whatever they need to look at in advance so they can have some input to recommend to us aside from what we already know. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Nix. Just a quick question, Keith, if you could find out for me before we next meet, would be if this is, and you may have already answered this and I don't remember, but we're looking for a shovel-ready project. That's how this was presented. We would be looking for some money from either state or federal, as you mentioned. Would the referendum for said project have to happen prior to that, or once the shovel-ready money becomes available, it would then go to referendum?
That's a good question, which I'll get you an answer for.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other counselor hands up, so we will move on to the next item. Or I'm sorry, do we need to take them? This is under old business. So do we need to make a motion to table or to withdraw? Or can we just move on?
I think we can just leave it on the agenda.
Okay.
Right, I think we can. We just don't take action on it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking around for a consensus. That is a consensus of the council, correct?
Yes.
That's fine. Okay, wonderful. So we'll leave that on. We'll continue it to our next meeting. The next item on our agenda is Anna Reynolds School renovation. And we have before us a resolution that would allow our finance director, Janet Murphy, and our town manager, Keith Chapman, to go ahead and have draft bond language created regarding a referendum for the project. As you know, just for the public's sake, this is a project that the council is considering putting forward to referendum in the fall. In order to do that, we would have to have language created, and that's why the resolution is before us. Could someone read that resolution in for me, please?
I can do it.
Thank you, Councilor Menke.
Mayor,
Read
could I suggest holding off on that for a moment?
Oh, certainly.
With discussions with the superintendent of schools and with Keith as well, we actually have an amended motion that's been requested by the school board that would go to the state directly. I do have that on the next slide.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure this was what everybody received in their packet. So the next one is adding in a dollar amount and a referendum to be taking place before November 15th reporting deadline.
Okay, I apologize. I was trying to get it read in so we could discuss like the way we're supposed to, but I don't always remember to. So I apologize for rushing it. Dr. Brummett, I'm sorry about that. I did read your email that there was some language you wanted included. So
yes, this motion has the correct language.
Okay. Let's go ahead, Mr. Menke, Counselor Menke, if you would read that one in, please.
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby authorizes Janet Murphy, Town Finance Director, and Keith Chapman, Town Manager, to prepare bond language for the Anna Reynolds renovation project referendum not to exceed $35,537,100. The referendum must be scheduled and results must be reported to the Office of School Construction and Grants Management prior to November 15th, 2020.
What do you want to print out?
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Anist.
Tell me what you want to do.
Discussion on the matter?
Can I print that? It's not.
I'm sorry, I'm finagling with technology, trying to see if there's any hands up. I apologize. Counselor Donahue.
Thank you, Beth. This is still dependent on the state kicking in the 45 or 50, whatever the percentage is, to make that happen, correct?
Dr. Brummett, do you want to go ahead on that?
Sure, yes. The town has every right to, change this if the state reimbursement is not coming through. Right now, we're expecting over 57% reimbursement, or anywhere between 15 and 19 million will be covered by the state. But this language simply allows us to finish our application for the grant, which is due by the end of this week. And this is the final piece of it. But all through the process, the town has the right to, make sure state funding is guaranteed. And that will come after the grant application. Then we'll get some information after that component.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Thank you, Dr. Brummett. Any other council questions? I see Counselor Nagel's hand.
I just wanted to say that I appreciate the additional language that was put into this resolution, which makes things a lot clearer to everyone involved. And thank you for doing that.
Any other council comment? All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead with the roll call vote, please.
Counselor Anist?
Yes.
Counselor Braverman?
Yes,
Counselor
Thanks,
Bucco?
Martin.
I did.
Yes.
Counselor Camillo?
Yes.
Counselor Donahue?
Yes.
Counselor Menke?
Yes.
Counselor Minor?
Yes.
Counselor Nagel?
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono?
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, everyone. Motion passes 9-0. Thank you, Dr. Brummett.
Thank you all very much. Very exciting development.
Okay, we will move on to the next item, which is bid waiver request on the LED lighting project. This was presented to us at our last meeting regarding the Board of Education's competitive bids for the HVAC control system. I'm going to is Lou on with us?
I am on here, but I'm having technical difficulty. I can't see anybody on my thumbnail. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
We can.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, I can certainly present in this situation. So,
yeah, if you would just give us a quick summary that I know we already heard it, but just for the public too.
Okay. Yep. Several months ago, we had put out a bid opportunity for HVAC work in 3 of the schools. And as a outcropping of that, we were approached by an energy management company that was representing that they could significantly create savings for us by adding an LED lighting component to the project, which in essence allows us to stack the rebates. So instead of getting the minimal straight up rebates that they get, we would really be able to put ourselves in a position to obtain around a 70% discount on additional work added to the project in the HVAC area to go along with in the LED lighting area to go along with the HVAC work. The company, I allowed them to go out, survey the buildings, put together their proposal. I also contacted another company who was the is the HVAC winner of the bid, who actually does some of this work as well, to really vet the presentation I was given and the sophistication of the organization for being able to achieve the rebates that they're talking about. In the review process, it was clear that the company from Glastonbury, PowerPoint Energy, is representing what they can do, and they're willing to stand behind it financially to allow us to yield, substantial savings in this area. To put a kind of a umbrella on it, the additional work of LED lighting for the project was $473,000 to fully do these 3 schools. And we're able to yield in the neighborhood of $350,000 of additional rebates. So our incremental cost is going to be around $116,000 for the work as designed, which is about a 75% discount. So this was just strictly an opportunity management situation, and being able to present this for consideration. Certainly we have no skin in the game financially to the company or to any financial commitments at this time. So if it's preferred that this does not move forward, where the Board of Ed and the town is not at risk for anything, everything is contingent upon a affirmative bid waiver. The quality of the fixtures is everything right off the Eversource list. So there is no substitution or trade downs that are here. The fixtures have to meet the standards for the rebating calculations in order to be considered. So there is, the only risk we have is just paying the bill. So that kind of sums it up in very simple terms. So.
Okay. Any questions or discussion by council? Lou, can you just mention actually how you pay the bill, so to speak? Like, where does that come from in your budget?
Okay, this will be coming out of our operating budget. The approximate bottom line for us is $116,000 for our share of this. The company has given us a not to exceed number, worst case scenario of $160,000, which, I was talking to them today, they're very comfortable in what they're presenting to us. But under no set of circumstances would we have any additional financial risk other than paying $160,000 for the work.
Any other council question or discussion? Okay, we'll move on to a roll call vote then, please. I'm sorry, did we read it? We didn't read it in. I apologize. I'm moving ahead. Who'd like to read it in? Councilor Anist.
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby approves a bid waiver for the Board of Education for the LED lighting project upgrades by PowerPoint Energy of Glastonbury in conjunction with the HVAC control system project at Newington High School, Martin Kellogg Middle School, and John Patterson Elementary School to ensure the maximum rebates for the improvements.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Menke. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Menke,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono,
Yes.
9-0.
Motion passes 9-0. Thank you.
And thank you all.
Thank you, Lou.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Brummett.
Thank you all very much.
All right, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the annual suspense list. This was presented to us last meeting. Let's see. This is where we review the process of removing the taxes deemed uncollectible from the town's receivable assets. And the motion on the table, if someone could just read the motion into the record before we begin discussion, because I'm bad at that and I forget all the time. Who would like to read it?
The first one, the second one.
Maybe do, well, I can do it if you like.
Thank you, Counselor Menke. I'm a teacher. I'll wait you all out until somebody raises their hand.
Yeah, see? Resolved. Newington Town Council hereby authorizes transfer in the amount of $162.46 to the Suspense tax book for the year 2017, 2018, and $100,480.18 to the Suspense tax book for the year 2018, 2019. This action is being taken upon recommendation of Corinne Adler, Revenue Collector, as shown in report dated June 5th, 2020.
Could I ask for a small amendment to that?
Yeah, go ahead, James. What do you need?
I just noticed it. The dollar amount should have read 115,215.86. It was pulled out under the motor vehicle and supplemental total only. That was part of her previous memo from the 5th, which is listed right here.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I just noticed that.
Oh, I see it. Yep. So Counselor Menke, would you make the amendment to your motion?
I would amend the motion to read 115,378.32.
115,215.86.
21586.
Yeah. The 162.46 was the top line.
Okay. So I would amend my motion to read 115,215.86.
Correct.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Donahue. Any further discussion on this? I know we discussed it last week, or last meeting, I should say. Mr. Chapman, anything to add?
No, it's an annual event that you do take every year, and it's not that we're going to stop trying to collect that money. It's just that it's reached a point where the debtors are not readily available, but if they pop up again, we'll be going after them.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Menke,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, Susan. It looks as though there is a second motion related to this agenda item. Counselor Menke, would you go ahead with that as well?
Certainly. Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby authorizes the outstanding balance from the 2004 grand list in the amount of $42,245.37 be removed from the town's receivable assets as of June 30th, 2017, as per the recommendation of Corinne Adler, Revenue Collector.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Nagel. Any other discussion or comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll move to roll call vote, please.
Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Menke,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, Susan. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is discussion of the 2030 Plan of Conservation and Development, POCD. We've all been provided with the draft book of the POCD. The Town Planning and Zoning had hired a consultant. They did an extensive amount of work on this and have provided us with that for discussion. So I'll open the floor up for discussion. As we all know, the TPZ Commission will be holding a public hearing. I believe it's July 22nd at 7. Is that correct, guys? Yep. Thank you. I had it wrong last time. I wanted to make sure I got it right this time. So July 22nd at 7 to get some more information from the public. If there's anything the public wants changed or addressed, they'll be able to speak at that meeting. So I'll open it up for discussion by counselors. Counselor Minor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question. I noticed that the reference is being made to providing this via Zoom platform do we have the time to possibly hold this back a little bit to allow for an in-person public meeting? I know I've heard a lot of people have been frustrated on trying to figure out how to get into the Zoom platform and, physically getting their meeting schedule and not being able to feel like they can attend to voice their opinions. And I just would hate to see something as important as this not have a full public input before it's adopted.
I think that's a valid question, Counselor Minor. Unfortunately, I mean, that would really be up to TPZ to determine for their meeting what they would do, I think, for format. I don't think that's necessarily up to us, but I know. Go ahead, James, I'm sorry.
Mr. Minor is on the attendees. He does have his hand up if you'd like him to address that.
I'm sorry. Thank you for
okay.
drawing that to my attention. Oh, where is he? There he is. Mr. Minor, are you there?
Yes, yes. The TPC has built into the schedule enough time to keep the July 22nd hearing open for an additional 2 weeks if necessary. And in fact, we discussed this at the last meeting, TPC meeting. If the feeling after the Zoom public hearing on the 22nd is that it was not representative, then TPC will keep the hearing open, and then if social distancing rules allow, then resume at a real meeting at a location to be determined.
Okay, great. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
I just want to comment that Councilor Anist and I have been following this since the beginning as the TPC liaisons. So some input was given. And additionally, there was already one public hearing by TPZ. Then there was that, I don't know what they call that, charrette or whatever at the high school cafeteria where there was actually some hands-on work done by those members of the public who has attended. And the TPZ meetings where the POCD was discussed was open to the public for anybody who was interested. And Glenn Chandler, who was the consultant on this, also met with many of the impacted commissions, such as open space and inland wetlands. So of course, they're always looking for more public input, but there have been opportunities in the past, and hopefully people will come out on the 22nd for who's ever concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Minor, did you have something to add?
No, the only thing I would add to that, sorry, Mr. Minor, we have two, OR, ER.
I was referring to OR because his hand was up, but I apologize for the confusion.
No, all set. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Minor, did you want to jump in?
No, just to make a final comment to it, that I think that, the charrettes that were done early on and some of the initial conversations were the early part of the planning of it. And now that this has kind of been embodied as one document, I think now would be the time to have the most opportunity for the public to input. Because again, it is the plan for the next 10 years.
Right.
Thank you.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm curious to hear what the public has to say. I'm really looking forward to hearing that on the 22nd. Any other council comment, or do we want to keep this on our agenda for further discussion, or do we want to perhaps take it off? And if we choose to put it back on after hearing from the public, we could do that as well. I'll entertain that as a thought.
I think we could probably take it off until the public hearing, and then we can then revisit it after we get the public's comments.
So would we need to table it and not take it off completely?
I'm going to defer if James is on. Just because... Oh, go ahead, Mr. Chapman.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it either way, but you're going to want to have this back to discuss at some point. So if you table it, we can just carry it until such time as you want to discuss it.
Then let's just table it for this point.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Do I motion to table? Do I need a motion for this?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Counselor Menke, seconded by Counselor Annis. Any further discussion? Seeing none. We, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Annis,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Boudreaux,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Menke,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono,
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you. We'll move on now. That's the end of our old business agenda items. So we will move on to new business. The first item is discussion sale of town property, Fen Road. Mr. Chapman, would you please?
Yes, this has been a subject that's been tossed about for some time now with the council. With us tonight, we do have Attorney David Griffith, which is representing the property owner. David, are you on?
Hold on one second. I think I have to just click some settings to get him on with us. Mr. Griffith, are you there? Oh, let me try one more. Let me try this.
Muted.
I think
Attorney
he's muted.
Griffith, are you there?
Muted.
How about that?
Yes, she's
There
there.
we go.
David, could you explain to the council where you stand on this at this point and what
Yeah.
you'd like to see
Yes,
done?
thank you. Good evening. My name is David Griffith. I'm an attorney, law firm Griffith and Kelly LLC, 66 Cedar Street here in Newington. I represent a Walk Center LLC. Walk-in Medical Center owns property right now at 49 Fen Road and has owned that property for approximately 10 years. And at a prior time had gotten site plan approval from PPZ to put up a building. Since that time, my client has expressed an interest in purchasing a budding property to the south of the property it owns, is parcel A and parcel B. And I believe, James, do you have have you put up the map yet? It shows the location. Thank you.
Working on it. There we go.
Thanks. Just to give you an idea of where the property is located, and there's a parcel A and parcel B. Those are the parcels that we are interested in purchasing and closing on and finalizing. And basically, our agreement in principle with the town was that we would go ahead before going further to close on this property, is we would go to the Conservation Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission to get approval for further development of the property. It could include increasing the building's size and increasing the parking. And we proceeded to do that. As well as being quite thoroughly vetted by the town staff, including the engineering department, and meeting the requirements of the town. And we have received the stamp of approval from these town commissions and staff to go take it a step further, to go ahead and finalize this. My client is ready, willing, and able to go ahead and purchase the property at this point. We believe that for our town, there's a benefit both in the proceeds from the sale, but in addition, obviously, the property is going to go on to the tax rolls and increase tax revenues within the town. So I'm urging the council to, as expeditious as possible, move this forward. I know that PPZ has to give 8-24 approval, and I believe there's a public hearing requirement, and we hope that this can move forward as quickly as possible. And I'll answer if there are any questions at this point. I'd be happy to try to answer them, but that's the overview of where we are.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Griffith. I'll open it up to council questions. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Chapman.
If I may, there's a error in the writing in the second paragraph of your memo. The fair market value of their property exceeds the 10,000, and therefore it does need to go to a public hearing. That was misquoted there. So the fact that it is over 10,000 requires it to go to a public hearing as well.
Okay, so it should say if it's determined that it does exceed.
Yes.
Okay.
Not, does not. The not is not supposed to be there.
Yeah, when we read that during our caucus, it didn't really make sense. Okay. So any other council question or comments? I see Councilor Nagel.
Yes, I'm just, because it isn't mentioned in this particular memorandum, what is the selling price of the property?
65,000.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make certain I knew what the amount was and there was an agreement, because there isn't any on the memorandum we got today saying how much it was. Thanks.
Councilor Camillo?
Attorney, you had asked us to expedite this. If we move this forward, are you going to break ground just as fast?
Well, I know that my client is anxious to close on this and to go forward. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm involved in all of the particulars, the design, etc. But I do know that he is anxious to go forward with this project. That's all I can say to you at this point.
I was on TPZ when this was approved, and that was several years ago. And I know this was brought up then. So I'm just curious, when do you plan on starting the project?
Well, again, I don't have a date, but I'm full speed ahead of this.
Okay, I'm just, you're asking this to move forward fast, and usually there's a reason. I'm curious on a date, that's all. Thank you.
Councilor Mankey?
We would just be approving this at our next meeting to go to 8-24 for the TPZ to make the recommendation, and then schedule a public hearing. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We could do both actions at the same night as well.
Okay. Councilor Anist?
Thank you. Does he need to get financing for this?
No, he doesn't. If you're talking about for the purchase, no.
Okay, thank you. Any other council question or comment?
Mr. Minor has his hands up on the attendee side again.
Thank you, James. I can't watch all of it. I appreciate your help with that. I
I'm
can't
here.
keep switching back and forth. Go ahead. Is he there?
He was.
Well, he's on mute.
Mr. Minor, did you want to add something with an OR?
No, that was my mistake. I did not mean to have my hand up.
Okay, just checking. Thank you. Okay, so I don't see any other hands raised. It appears we have exhausted our questions. So thank you, Attorney Griffith, for joining us, and the council will keep this on the agenda for our next meeting to take action.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is discussion facilities review contract. Let me just get into my packet here. So we do have a couple of people from ORNL with us tonight. I believe Suzanne Black, you're here, right, Susan? Hi, Susan, and I'm just gonna unmute you if are you there?
Yes.
Okay, great. And could you just tell us who else you have with you this evening?
Sure. Tom Hulk of our company, who will be participating in the facility audits, is also here on the Zoom meeting.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Chapman, do you want to get us started on this?
Yeah, this is a project that you had supported to go forward with several months ago. The COVID-19 situation has complicated matters for Owens, but we're, I think, about ready to have them begin the process of evaluating and inspecting properties that are listed on their through their charge of the actions that you've already taken. So Suzanne, you may want to expound upon that. Where do you stand with the, and when will you be starting to do the actual walkthroughs?
Yes, certainly. Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So up until this point, we have primarily been doing preparation and planning for the audits and have not done a lot of work on site. And as Keith mentioned, it's primarily due to the COVID-19 situation where, you know, our resources and our personnel, many of them, and on the Friar side too, were really working from home and had reluctance to, you know, go out. But we did meet with Gary Furstenberg on site in Newington on May 21st. We also met with Doug, I'm not sure his last name, the building inspector. Friar a couple of weeks ago picked up the building plans and for most of the buildings and brought them to their office in their process of copying them. And on Thursday, they'll be returning those plans and picking up the last batch of the plans. We are planning on this coming Monday, June 29th, I believe it is, to be on site, starting with the school facilities, and we'll be working with Gary to schedule the schools so he has somebody there to meet with us to go through the buildings. Friar is going to be doing the structural, the engineering, the architectural, the ADA compliance, the roofing, and Owens will be doing the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. We're on the HVAC side. We have a revised schedule that I had prepared, that Friar had prepared, and I did give to Gary today. We expect to, I think as we mentioned during our prior presentations, that we would be preparing reports along the way and not just at the end. So we would have a draft facility analysis and reports on the buildings that were completed starting around July 27th. The final facility analysis and report, after we compile all the buildings together and put it into the final book, is probably now more in the November timeframe. But as I said, we will be preparing the reports preliminary to you starting around July 27th. We also had a little question. There was a little discrepancy between the list of buildings that was in the RFP and in the contract. So we've been working with Doug on that. There were specifically, I went over it today with Gary, and I think with the buildings that were taken out and the buildings that were put in, the only question of the two buildings that were not listed were the Deming Young House and the Deming Young Barn. So I don't know the square, you can see those are listed in red with the red boxes a little bit halfway down. So I can talk to Gary about those tomorrow, what the square footage is on those, and see if you want to include those or not, but they were not in either document. But we were trying to, you know, take one building out. We did take out the, which one? What, the 200 Garfield, I believe, no, wait a minute, I'm sorry, the Board of Ed old office. And so we traded a couple other buildings in for that, but these two Deming buildings were not on either list. But I think that, you know, based on the square footage, we'll be able to, you know, sort of work that out. But, you know, we're looking forward to getting started. We're happy to, you know, come back to another meeting and give preliminary updates or pending updates as well throughout the process over the next couple of months.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll open it up to council question or comment. Suzanne, I just wanted to say thank you for giving us a report on this. I know the council's been anxious to get some information regarding status and kind of where we're going, knowing that COVID was a bit of a problem, but we are, as you mentioned, very anxious to get this underway and get some answers. We've been really trying to put off doing any major projects other than ones that we know we just can't avoid anymore to make sure that we're addressing needs in a priority kind of capacity. So this is something we're really anxious to get underway. So I appreciate the review. I see some council hands up now, so I'm gonna go over to Deputy Mayor Bedrejko first.
Sure.
Yes, on the chart that you have under the column price to add, Now, so those buildings, did that increase the overall cost of the project by adding those buildings?
So what I was trying to explain, probably not very well, that there were some buildings that were in the RFP.
Right.
And in the list of buildings, and then in the contract, there was some discrepancy.
Oh,
So
okay.
traded some of those buildings on the price to add where there was a credit and a debit against these. I think there was another error that I talked to Bob Roach over at Fryer today. So I think that we've worked out everything to almost even. So there would be no change. Only those two buildings, the Deming Young House, the Deming Young Barn, neither of which were in either of the documents, the RFP or the contract. So
Okay.
I don't know what those.
Well, the
don't know what.
Well, I guess the RFP, because I was, just in general, it said that you were going to cover historical, historical homes, whatever. So I guess it was just a miscommunication, but I'm glad that it's getting resolved because those are, important buildings within the town.
Okay. So I don't know.
And again, we're really looking forward to the results of this because if and when, we keep talking about shovel-ready projects or whatever, if there's grants or whatever available, this is going to be a key document in helping us decide which buildings to move forward for referendum. So thank you for your efforts.
Sure. And, again, I apologize. Maybe I didn't apologize, but I do want to apologize for the delay. Myself, I was quarantined for 2 weeks, self-quarantined for 2 weeks. So we lost a little bit of time, and also with our employee resources from both our company and from Fryer because of people working from home and not, really being reluctant to go out. So I think things are getting a little bit back to normal. I hope things don't get any worse. As Keith mentioned at the beginning with the phase 2 starting and what happened in Florida, I hope we don't get back to that, but we're full steam ahead. And as I said, we'd be happy to come back next month and give you an update as well.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Counselor Anist.
Thank you. Maybe I missed it. What's the new schedule of when?
So I don't know what I shared it today with Gary, but I'm not sure he sent it over. So the surveys on site will start on Monday, June 29th. We're going to be starting with the schools because they're vacant at the moment. We thought it would be best to get those done during the summer break. Then the remainders of the buildings will start around August 10th. We'll have a draft facility analysis and reports starting around July 27th. We had talked about this during the presentation that we would provide updates on the buildings as we go along. So you wouldn't have to wait to the very end for all of the reports. So those will start coming in around July 27th. We'll have more meetings again to, more closely discuss them in detail October 5th. And the final report, including all the buildings and, a final presentation will be around November 10th, approximately.
And I think Deming Farm had a structural analysis done. Can somebody just check to see when that was done?
Yeah, that's a good point, Counselor Annis. There was something done a few years ago under the former facilities director that looked at the structure. I believe, Mr. Chapman, I think DTC was the consultant. Do you think, does that ring a bell, Counselor Annis?
Yeah, and I do know that Mr. Gooddeal went around with whoever did it, so he might even have it in his possession.
If there's some record of those being done, then certainly we'll share those with Suzanne and see if they have to be done again. If it's just done recently, then that may not require another inspection, but we'll look into that. I have not seen any reports dealing with the Young property whatsoever. So.
Yeah, there were concerns at the time about the stability of it and whether or not it was safe to have visitors in. I remember that very clearly now. And I'm pretty certain it was DTC was the company that was brought in to look at that for us. So yeah.
we'll look into that.
Okay, thank you.
so-
Counselor Menke.
I'm just also anxious to see this project move forward. I think it's easiest for us to make decisions going forward about our facilities if we have some kind of a overall review of them. So I certainly await reports on the 27th and then again in October and then November. So thank you for moving this forward.
Certainly.
Thank you, Counselor Camillo.
During your presentation, I believe that was in January. You talked about 131 Cedar Street. You've got it here in red, out of scope. What happened with that? I had mentioned it. That's why I'm asking. I had asked it.
Yeah, so that was taken, I think, in the scope, but was taken out of the scope because I understand that the building was going to be raised. And that's why we had that comment there. So we traded the cost and the square footage of that building for some of the other ones that weren't in the scope. So that's where we had some credits and debits there.
Okay, thank you.
Trying to make it work within the project's price.
Thank you.
Perfect. Counselor Minor.
Thank you. Just a quick question. As you're getting underway with the schools, if you could possibly look towards Anna Reynolds as being the beginning of your work towards towards the end. The only reason I bring that up is I believe by deadline, Madam Mayor, we have to make a decision based in early August. If it is to go to referendum, it would be, I think it would be prudent for us to have information from them as well as the contractor hired by the BOE, just to reference the information one against the other.
We can put that to the top of the list.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Counselor Minor. Great suggestion. I know I did ask James for the date Counselor Annis had asked for. September 3rd is the last day for the town council to approve a question for the November ballot. So that would put us much earlier than that in order to get the language together. So I think your guesstimate of beginning of August is probably right, Counselor Minor.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can put that to the top of the list. And I'll talk to Fryer as well.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Information, I think it would help all of us.
Fine, that's great. If there are any other buildings that you would like a priority on, you just let us know and we can work that way.
Perfect. Thank you. Counselor Nagel?
Yes, some of the questions I was going to ask have been answered by people previously. Getting back to the Deming Young Farm, you're correct. There was a structural analysis to it. And I remember attempts were made to repair things that were thought not to be safe. And it had a lot to do with handicapped accessibility. And I know also there's a question about the barn on the Deming Young Farm. And I don't know if that is included in the inspection and not just the house.
Susan, I think you spoke to that you're working on getting that included.
Yes, so those buildings were not on the RFP or in the contract. So that's sort of the last final open discussion item, whether, I don't know the square footage and we don't know if it's something that the town wants to add to it, because I think everything else has been traded, I don't know if that's the right word, but traded for credits and debits. And that's the only one that wasn't on either list. So I think if I talk to Gary tomorrow about the square footage and you guys want to look into, what report you might have done in the past, and we could take a look at that and just supplement, do a.
I know there was discussion about that particular barn and the historical significance of it and not historical significance of it. So this might clarify everything from what results you find out, and also make it clear about the Deming Young Farm past structural visit that was made that somehow doesn't, at least for the moment, seem to be found anywhere. I'm sure Mr. Goodale knows. I can put my bet on that he does. Okay. And to his credit and ours. Thank you.
Be interested in looking at that if you do get your hands on it.
Good.
Counselor Camillo?
Since Anna Reynolds is a topic for discussion. So would be Mill Pond. Put that as the second thing to look at, since it's coming up that they're looking to do a big project there. Does it warrant it? Is the facility that's already there worth knocking down or building another one?
Yeah, that's a very valid question as well.
So, because that could come up this fall too, possibly. It's just
We could
leave
do
it up
that
to
one.
you.
We can do that one as a second priority.
Thank you.
you.
Sure.
Counselor Minor.
Thank you. Just a quick add on to what Councilor Camillo was just talking about. I think there's one building you don't even have to bother to look at, which would be the concession building. I want to say that was completely rebuilt, everything entirely, or at least verify that with building department as a result of a fire we had a few years ago.
Correct.
Everything within that building was completely redone. So you might want to just check to see this even warrant inspecting that building or not.
And that's at Mill Pond, Suzanne.
Mill Pond. Okay, thank you.
The
Yeah,
Mill Pond concession stand, yeah.
47.
Okay, thank you.
Any other council comment or question? I don't see anything. Anything else, Ms. Black?
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for the information. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Town Hall Site Plan. Mr. Chapman?
Yes, in your packet tonight, you'll see a memo dealing with Mazzicoli Way and basically an abandonment of a portion of Mazzicoli Way. It's on if you look at the back page, you'll see the area that's suggested to be abandoned as a roadway. And it has already gone to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the 8-24. And so it's back on your agenda for consideration for you to take an action at your next meeting, if you so desire.
Okay. Council comment and question. I see Councilor Camillo, please.
We never had a hearing on that to do the 8-24. What came back to us last year when TPZ approved it for an 8-24 with recommendations. So we still have to have the public hearing on it before we could act on it.
Okay, we'll arrange that.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I'm just reviewing the memo that's in front of us. It's hard to read on my screen when I'm trying to look at hands. Councilor Mankey, go right ahead.
Can you just explain when you say abandonment, we aren't abandoning the whole road, just a portion of it, right?
Just a portion, that's correct.
Because we've realigned it?
That's correct.
Okay. So the road just substantially stays the same. It's just we just shifted it over a bit.
Well, again, look at the back page of your packet. You'll see the area that's being abandoned, that darkened area.
That's the dark gray, right? Okay.
That's correct. So that's no longer going to be part of the road.
Okay, gotcha. I see. Thank you.
Oh, I see. Yep. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
One more question.
Yep, go ahead.
And they've moved the property line over too. So that's what the 8- is for. Across the street, we've narrowed the road down. Is that something that was part of the recommendation, taking it back to the 26 or 32 feet instead of the 19 that it is right there? And it's a sort of choke right in the middle there at the end.
Is that a question?
That's a question.
And what is your question?
Okay. The road narrows just before Garfield.
Yep.
Okay. And can the curb be moved over on the Lucy Well property so Mazzicoli still has a good in and out? Because you don't have enough room to have 2 buses or a truck or 2 cars past that spot.
it's wide enough for two-way traffic. It's not certainly wide enough to be parking any vehicles along there.
Okay, that's my concern when we have something for, basketball game or something. People start parking there and then you have a bottleneck.
No, I think that'll be posted, no parking along there.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Minor?
Thank you. Yeah, just to follow up on that, it looks, I would question whether or not this drawing is actually an accurate current drawing, or if this is based off the old road configuration, because the way Mazzacoli is now essentially comes down straight. It really doesn't have that arc like it used to. So I would question, Keith, whether or not this is even an accurate drawing of it or
Yeah,
not.
it does have a bend in the road, not as severe as what it was before, but have you been, if you haven't seen it lately, you might want to go up. The road is now done. So
Yeah, they paved it today.
Pardon?
Yeah, they paved it today. So I just happened to be driving by, and it visually, to me, it's a lot straighter. But if this has actually been done is based on the current road conditions, then it just a little, it just jumps out a little bit more on paper, I guess.
Yeah, and in fact, we've had discussions internally about the fact that it would have been nice if the road just was straight all the way rather than having a bend in it. But that's the way it was designed before I got here. So it was approved and it was built according to the specifications.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Minor. Counselor Nagel?
I just wanted to point out that where it narrows, if one was going to widen it to the east, if I'm correct, part of that property doesn't belong to the town, but it belongs to the Friends of the Library that gave it to the library for parking. I know at the very end, that lot belongs to the town. So that would be another difficulty in terms of changing what essentially is, from what I understand, has been completed as it appears here at the moment.
That's correct. It would have been nice if it was a straight run, but it's not. So we live with what it is now.
Okay. Any other council question or comment regarding this item? All right, so Mr. Chapman, if you could, before our next meeting, just check on the question from Counselor Camillo about the need for a public hearing or not.
Yes.
And then we'll continue this item to our next agenda. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is resignations and appointments. I believe we have an appointment to the Board of Ethics, and that is Mr. Chapman's appointment. So who would like to read that in?
I can do it.
Okay, Counselor, actually, I'm sorry, Counselor Menke. Counselor Annis has her hand up.
Oh, sure.
Following rules.
Okay, I'll raise my hand next time.
Go ahead, Counselor Annis.
Pursuant to a recommendation by Keith Chapman, Town Manager, the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointment of an unaffiliated member of the Board of Ethics. Frank Marcy, 72 Southwood Road, Party U, term immediate to 11/30/2021, replaces self-serving de facto term.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Menke. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is tax refunds, approval of the June 23rd, 2020 refunds for an overpayment of taxes. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko, if you would.
Resolved that property tax refunds in the amount of $367.99 are hereby approved in the individual amounts and for those named on the requests for refund of an overpayment of taxes certified by the revenue collector, a list of which is attached to this resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Nagel. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. We will move on to minutes of previous meetings. We have before us the June 9th, 2020 special meeting minutes and June 9th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to accept those as written, please.
So moved.
So moved by Counselor Menke and seconded
Second.
by Counselor Donahue. Any discussion or corrections? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to written oral communications from the town manager, Mr. Chapman.
Aye.
At this point, no. However, I will say that I'm contemplating having some type of a board or commission created that a counselor may be invited actually to participate in, dealing with the whole issue of the protest that took place, but not specifically dealing with police activities. It's more dealing with all of us trying to understand each other better and not having this topic just, go away for a while and then come back. I think it's time for the town of Newington to have some type of an organization that talks about these issues on an ongoing basis. So I'll be sending you out information on that, but I did want to let you know that that is something that I'm working on.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Chapman. Any council question or comment for the town manager? Counselor Anist?
Keith, a couple of things. Can you just remind everybody what our new address is going to be as of July 1st?
Oh, geez. I'm not prepared for that. That was created by Gary, and I will get that out to you, but I don't have that in front of me. Yeah.
Okay, can we put that on the website?
Yeah, the addresses are going to be Garfield Street, not Cedar Street. Makes more sense because that's the way the buildings are actually facing. So, but I'll get a memo out to you explaining how that all is going.
Can we put it on the website too?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And then my other question is, can you just bring everybody up to speed with the deferment of the taxes to October 1st? Doesn't the application have to be filed by June 30th with the tax collector so it can be accepted?
I've asked our finance director to look into that with Corinne, our tax assessor or tax collector. I don't have an answer for you tonight on that, but I know it is something that I'm working on.
Yeah, it's on our, if you go on the tax collector, it says it. I just want to remind our residents that June 30th is the deadline.
Okay.
Okay. Counselor Meyer, you had your hand up. Did you take it down on purpose?
No, all set. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other hands up, so we'll move on to the next item, which is council liaison committee reports. No one has their hands up? I mean, we have had limited meetings because of the COVID, so.
That's true.
Could be why. Oh, Counselor Donahue coming through. Go
I'll
ahead.
help you out, Beth, okay? From a NCTV perspective, we did receive our PEGPESHA grant. We are in the process of making changes due to some changes of the building and the rooms we were given. And our tentative move date is 7/24.
Okay, wonderful. Any other council liaison reports? I'm just going to jump in. Counselor Anist, I am in receipt of a memo that lists the new addresses, anticipated addresses. So the new town hall address would be 200 Garfield. Library would be 100 Garfield. So Board of Ed and Community Center, of course, are a part of town hall. They would also be 200. Police Department would be 300 Garfield. The bus garage would be 401, it looks like. I'm not sure if that's a typo or not because they're all ending in 00. So we'd have to check on that one. And the Board of Ed bus parking lot, it says, would be 800, and it is 401. I'm just getting a memo. 401 Garfield Street is the bus garage, and then the bus parking lot is 800 Garfield. So those addresses are in the works. I'm not certain. I believe they're not becoming effective right away until September 1st, perhaps. It may not be right away with the moving of the building. We'll have to clarify that.
Okay, so they changed that date. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so the next item, we're done with council liaison reports. We'll move on to public participation. And we have three hands raised right now. So the first hand is 070, Ms. Lyons, I believe. Let me just unmute you really quickly. Okay, Ms. Lyons, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Rose
go right
Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. I just wanted to thank you for putting a hold on the approval of the formation of the Mill Pond Park Project Committee until you have a complete understanding of what the charge is of that committee. After you had your discussions, I have no further questions. I just once again want to thank you. I was able to put away my blood pressure pills and take out a bowl of ice cream and sit and listen to the rest of the presentations. If you need a volunteer as a resident from the Democratic Party to be on the committee to make sure it doesn't get out of control, I volunteer right now. I'm sure that Parks and Rec will be happy to hear that. With that being said, I'm also very happy to hear that Frank is reappointed to the Ethics Board. He was on there when I was on there several years ago, and I don't think there's been but one meeting since then. And since he was the chairman, they couldn't hold the meeting because he didn't call the meeting, and they didn't have 3 members, I believe it is, to call the meeting. So I'm hoping to see somewhere in the near future a notice from the town of Newington that they're at least going to have a meeting of the Ethics Committee or Ethics Board to elect officers. With that being said, once again, stay well, stay safe, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Ms. Lyons. The next hand I see is Ms. Mazzacoli. Just give me 1 second to unmute you. Ms. Mazzacoli, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Sue Mazzacoli, 149 Harris Drive, Newington, Connecticut. I tried to beat Rose, but didn't make it. But she brought up the issue that I wanted to bring up, which is the Ethics Commission. I happen to be a member, at least I think I am, because it's been so long since we've met. I probably have to check with my town committee to see if I'm still a nominee, if I'm still a member, I should say. So I'll be interested to see if we at least have an annual meeting. I know with Ethics Commission, you meet when there's an issue, but also I know I attended one annual meeting, and I think that was 2 years ago. Okay, now the other thing I want to say is that, geez, now I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Oh, Keith, your idea of forming a new commission on the latest issues that we're experiencing not only in our town, but throughout the world as far as Black Lives Matter and the issues that surround that. I think it's a very, very good idea. I hope both the Democrat and the Republican committee put some real good thought into the people that they want represented on that commission. We did have a few new speakers. I remember at the last meeting who addressed that issue. Not so certain whether they're registered to vote. I know one of them wasn't, but the other two appeared to be. But maybe they might want to reach out to the Democrat and the Republican Party if they're interested in participating and have a place to give their views on the matter. And just want to say thank you once again for all you do for the town of Newington. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Mazzacoli. All right, we'll move on to the next person. The caller ID says John Bashand. Let me just, hold on, John. Okay, John, go ahead.
How you doing? Not sure if you could see me on here. I don't think there's an option for you to see me, but Just wanted to speak to a couple of items. Obviously, I guess my letter or my email that I sent was a little bit late. But let me start with this method of these Zoom meetings. I hope we can get back to regular meetings pretty soon. I mean, we're having restaurants open. Every day we're all dealing with people face to face. I don't see any reason why we can't have a normal meeting. I'm especially concerned about abandoning that existing town hall and moving into the other one before we allow the public back in. If that's any part of the goal to, calm emotions or something like that, I think that's a mistake. I want to get back in there. I want the public to get back in there. We could be doing these meetings in the auditorium. It's huge. There's plenty of room for distancing in there. Secondly, to this notion of having I don't know, I would call it a feel-good committee for what's going on. You saw what I asked for in my email. I asked for some recognition of our police department, some support for our police department. I'm not seeing any of that, and I'm disappointed. I'm certain that it's all in all of your hearts, but I think it behooves us to make I suggested a resolution. I don't know if that's the proper way of going about it, but there's this onslaught of criticism of law enforcement, which is truly unfair in our town. So I'm speaking specifically about our town. I'm not talking about other cities where we have no control over, but in our town, I think, just for the practical purpose of assuring the residents and businesses that we will not be defunding our police department to any significant degree, that something is said publicly. And I mentioned in that email that I did a poll online, and I think there was about 200 people responded, or maybe a little bit more. And between two different Facebook groups, and 80 to 90% of people agreed with that notion that Newington Police Department does not need significant reform. So again, I wish we could clarify that. I'm not saying not to do the other thing that the town manager suggested, but at least do something for the police department to let them know publicly how we feel. And then the last thing, and I won't mention the gentleman's name, but I asked for some recognition about one of our Conservation Commission members who left after many, many years. I think it was decades, and never got any recognition. So I won't mention his name now. I'll let you guys think about that. And hopefully we can, someone who's dedicated that much time, I think deserved at least, maybe not a rocking chair, I'm not saying, but some kind of recognition. So thank you for listening. I hope I didn't go over the time. And thanks for all you do, of course. And again, please consider a in-person, in-town hall meeting, and especially think about what I said about not closing that building before the public's allowed in there again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bachon. I don't see any other hands raised in our attendees section, so we will move on to remarks by counselors. I see Counselor Minor's hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In response to John's request for in-person meetings in the town hall building for what could potentially be a last official town hall meeting in that building, I would ask to give serious consideration now that the governor has upped the in-person meetings to 25 for an in-person meeting, and the auditorium would be providing a forum that would allow for social distancing, and anybody that didn't wish to attend, it wouldn't be required to. But I think that would be a very nice thing to do, to be able to get back in the building for potentially the last time, and also to meet in person again, if you can consider that.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Minor. Counselor Camillo?
I agree with John Bachon. We should definitely do a resolution. Police department in our town is okay. They definitely need some recognition today. They need a pat on the back from all of us. What they do every day and what they put up with out on the street, and they're there for us. You just call them and they're at your front door if you need a hand. So if we could do something, as a resolution, that would be great.
Thank you, Counselor Camilla. Counselor Anist?
Thank you. Keith, I had asked you about when we could have our meetings in live. Were you able to look into that with CCHD?
Yes, I will be talking with Charlie Brown over the next week or so. So we'll try to figure on having at least a final meeting in the town hall before we close it down. Cool. So it may come after July 4th, we'll say, but we have a little bit of time to do that, but I just want to make sure we stay safe. So let me talk with the health director and figure it out.
Keith, my only request would be that if we do an in-person meeting, that we provide an option for any members of the council who may not be interested in coming in person. There are, for whatever their personal reasons are, that we offer either a Zoom or call-in option for those that are not comfortable in coming for an in-person meeting if we do move in that direction.
Yes, we'll definitely take care of it.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't see any other hands raised. I just wanted to address a few things. Ms. Lyon, oh, I'm sorry, there's a couple more hands up. I'll wait. Counselor Donahue, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, not that I put much faith in what's happening on Facebook, but there's been a lot of chatter today about Newington, the school system changing its mascot, which is nice for if the Board of Education is in charge of that. But, it's going to come blowing back on us. So do we have any input into that decision?
You want to talk?
Yeah, my understanding would be that would be purely a Board of Education decision. And so if people do come to us with those questions, we'd have to refer them to the Board of Ed.
And do we refer them to the superintendent and Paul?
Absolutely.
Okay, because it's going to come blowing back. You know it.
Absolutely agree. Yep. Counselor Bedrejko?
Is this just remarks on public participation or general closing remarks?
It's just remarks by counselors, so anything you'd like.
Okay. Yeah. Before the time gets away, I just wanted to say that I'd like to thank all the teachers and staff in Newington for kind of the energy and the enthusiasm and their ability to adapt that they put in over the past couple of months for having to switch gears pretty quickly, do the distance learning, do some learning on their own. I know it was difficult. They also did an awful lot to try and keep the morale up and keep the students motivated or whatever, but they rose to the occasion. And for that, I'd like to thank them. And also a real shout out to staff at the high school and the Board of Education for putting on a graduation ceremony for the class of 2020. I know it took a lot, hours of making a decision, trying to get creative and come up with a meaningful and yet celebratory ceremony. And I think they really outdid themselves. I saw, I was watching for the 3 days because I work very close to that. And I think they did a great job. So I thank them. But most of all, I want to congratulate the Newington High School class of 2020. I'm glad they were able to have a ceremony, although it wasn't quite what the traditional ceremony would look like, but it looked joyous and it's certainly going to be memorable. They're not going to forget their high school graduation for sure. It was a tough year for them. Their senior year ended early. They didn't get to hang with their friends. They didn't have the prom. They didn't have the all-night party. They didn't get to walk across the stage as their family and friends would applaud them and watch them at this important milestone in their life. But it certainly doesn't minimize their accomplishments and what they put into their academic career here in Newington. So, and it certainly doesn't limit any of their accomplishments that we're looking forward to hearing about in the future. So they should be proud of themselves, and it was a job well done.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bedrejko. Any other council comment? All right, just to address a few things, Ms. Lyons, just for clarification's sake, we did already form the Mill Pond Park committee in terms of, we did not make appointments yet, but we did form the committee and decide the makeup of the committee. That was done at our last meeting. the intent for this evening was to try and provide guidance to that committee in terms of the scope of the project, and that was not what was in our packet today in terms of the intent. So that will be revisited, but the committee has been at least formed in essence, just no appointments have been made yet, but those are soon to come. In terms of Mr. Bashan mentioned public meetings, I think I addressed that already, but my concern would be that, you know, each and every member of this board has their own feelings on that matter. And so I want to make sure we provide opportunities for people to come in public if the health department deems it appropriate, but also to provide the opportunity for people to stay home if they are more comfortable with doing that as well. Mr. Bashan also mentioned part of what he wanted was recognition of a former committee member who had served a long-standing term. That was brought up in the past and was considered by the former council and former mayor, I believe. And so I will check into the whether or not anything was done. The feeling was that we don't typically do something at the council level for that, but the commission itself could honor that person. And so we can bring that back and for consideration to the commission if Mr. Bashan might choose to do that as well. That might work coming from a member of the public to the commission. And in terms of the support of the police, I'm not recommending a resolution at this point. I think each and every one of us has had an opportunity to speak to the chief or any of our police department ourselves to voice how we feel about things, or if we have questions or concerns, or just want to voice support. And I know I've taken the time to reach out to the person that I wanted to voice my thoughts on the subject, and anyone else on the council is welcome to as well. I know several councilors have done that. You know, I don't necessarily think a resolution is in order at this point, but we'll see how things unfold as we move forward. I wanted to thank the town manager for bringing up the formation of a commission or committee to look at these issues moving forward. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I look forward to seeing his recommendations on that matter. I think that's it for me. I don't see any other hands up, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved by Councilor Braverman and seconded by Councilor Annis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes and we stand adjourned at 8:54. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.